Well, greetings, Series 24 test takers. This is Dean Tinney. I'm coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. We have a collaboration with TestGeek Exam Prep LLC and its managing member, Brian Lee. That collaboration allows viewers and subscribers to get a 20% discount on TestGeek products and services. Usually what that includes is a free look on a practice exam that Brian has at TestGeek. And so it's been very helpful in our playlists on the channel. We try and provide narrative lectures, explication of content outlines, and practice finals. The SIE, for example, and the Series 7 playlists are pretty full in terms of the content we aim to deliver on the channel. Some of them a little thin, including 24, but 7, for example, we have 4 practice finals, 1 from TestGeek. SIE, we have 2 practice finals, 1 to mine, 1 to Brian. And 24, I called Brian. I said, well, Brian, we've worked our way through all the TestGeek stuff. And I know you usually offer the practice exam at $20 with our discount 16, $40 with our discount 34 for quick notes that include the practice final and the video, all the videos all in, $100, $80 with our 20% Guru 20 discount code, and time for the 24. And he said, well, Dean, I don't really do the 24 that way. It's a bundle. There is no individual pricing for the stuff because I don't really have the same thing. He said, what I have is if they buy the videos for $109, I send them some teaching questions, some questions I use in tutoring and teaching 24. And I said, well, I'm sure our folks, our viewers and subscribers would love again to see some practice questions used for teaching purposes if you don't have a full-blown practice final or you don't have the quick notes. So all that to say, we're going to start explicating here some questions like we do in the other playlists. This is for Series 24. However, if you decide that you want this, you're going to have to be all in on the videos. You don't get the PDF without buying the video. So that's $109 with the 20% discount. It'll be $87.20. And I will go ahead and link to Brian's website, TestGeek Exam Prep LLC, and I'll also put a link to a 24 YouTube video from Brian. If you haven't experienced TestGeeks in your earlier testing journeys on the SIE or 7 or 66, whatever the case may be. All right, so let's get started on our journey today. Okay, so as I said, these questions are not not a little different than what we usually do in terms of explication. What I mean by that, the answers are here. As I said, Brian sends this as part of his package of the Series 24 video series. So a little different. Anyways, let's go through these questions together, talk about what you can expect in terms of countering them or using them as teaching tools. So which of the following, which is required on a new account application is very much something you should know for the test. The signature of the principal. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are taking your 24 for the express purpose of being able to sign off on new account forms. What is required for suitability as a supervisory person? You need to make sure your rep is doing a good job on making suitable recommendations. And we can't possibly do that without an investment objective. Is it safety of principal? Is it speculation? Is it tax savings? What is it? REITs allow the pass-through of which of the following? Well, the point here is that mutual funds and REITs do not pass through losses. They only pass through income. The only thing that passes through, the only investment vehicle that passes through profits and losses are direct participation programs, AKA, also known as partnerships. An investment that allows passive income, gains and losses, there we go, can best be described as a direct participation program. So you will get some investment questions to make sure your reps are not misrepresenting what kind of investment vehicle it is that they're offering folks. So a client owns 100 shares of XYZ, 1,000 shares of XYZ, and has written 500 calls and sold 500 puts. So 500 calls gives me an obligation to sell 500 shares, and the puts gives me an obligation to buy 500 shares. The tender offers are made. How much can the client tender? You can only tender securities long here. So I don't particularly like this question. By the way, Brian is more than happy to have you call. You don't have to buy his videos to call and ask him about his questions. And I'm trying not to read you his, there's no rationales here. But the test issue I like, I'm not sure I like this question. But but you can only tender what you're net long. And so I haven't, let's see, I've sold the puts. I sold, oh, those, by the way, I just caught the trick here. 500 call times 1,000, right? Means I'm way over that. So now I see how Brian is getting to zero there. But very much a test issue. To accept a tender offer, you can only tender what you are long. And that means if you have options and you want to exercise them, you'd have to already done so. Anyways, nice trick there, Brian. A corporate bond trader has filled an order for 10 bonds at 2 a.m. When must he report the trade? The answer here is all the people who do this have gone home, so it's going to be the next day. Again, as of, I would know that, again, I'm not, a particular fan of this particular question, but when do we, what are the modifiers we add to after hours trading is what this is getting at. An established member firm has created a TV ad to promote the increased business. Which of the following is true or which is true? It's definitely retail advertising, right? We don't know who's going to see it. And that requires post-approval from FINRA because we're an established firm. And then you as a principal would have to approve it. Now, remember, if you're a first-year firm, everything is pre-approval. If you're an established firm, it's 10 days, within 10 days of first use, except for things like CMOs, derivatives, rankings that aren't independently prepared, just kind of pointing in the right direction in your study effort. An arbitration hearing has been called against a member firm and a customer has requested a copy of the original arbitration agreement. The member firm would be required to comply within 10 days. So 10 days is the answer. You get a lot of aim and shoot point click stuff. Kaplan offers what they call their quick sheets, and the quick sheets is a great investment. I think at Kaplan it's like $19, and you get a 10% discount with Guru 10. I don't get any compensation, by the way, on my Guru 20 discount code with TestGeek or my 10% with Kaplan. And then Brian does have in this, he does have a little, a couple pages in this PDF where he goes through those dates and times, and so you might want to consider. Like I say, you have to buy the videos to get it. So maybe at some point they'll separate it and unbundle it, but right now it's all bundled. ACT reports trades on all the following securities except New York doesn't report through ACT. I haven't had anybody tell me they've seen anything on ACT for what it's worth. A member firm. Now, assuming you do buy the go all in on the videos, on questions like this where Brian is spot on, this is a spot on question. You might want to consider printing out the PDF, and turning it into what I call a poor man's or lazy man's flashcard. And then what you might want to do is the night before or morning of or both, just go through this PDF and read all your questions and your right answers, particularly ones where you dean says, yeah, Brian's nailed this one. That's something I would be prepared to encounter on the actual exam. And that is 13 consecutive business days. A registered rep of ABC firm would like to work with another member firm on a private placement that the firm is helping in underwriting. Which of the following would be required? So you need to get firm approval to be working with another firm. Now, we're not asking about the regulatory thing. Be careful. This is about FINRA. It's not about the state administrator. This answer could be different depending on the circumstances, but here the answer is B. So, if you're going to be engaged in it, by the way, in any outside business activity, it would require your firm's approval. At 12, a principal's signature on a new account form is primarily to assert the account is approved for activity. Yeah, you're reviewing it to make sure it's good to go. I used to joke with my baby brokers. They'd come into my office and say, I have a new account. I say, oh, no, you don't. You don't have a new account until I, your principal, have approved that. Have you done any trades yet? They said, well, better not say, well, I figured it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. I said, well, then you're in the wrong industry. That is not true in our business. So the answer here is B. It looks like Brian is working on perhaps coming up with some distractors for some of these. And, this is on me because I asked to share things and I kind of push my friend Brian to give me stuff before maybe he wants to really, go out there. But again, that's another great poor man's flashcard or a lazy man's flashcard. Maybe I'll offer to write some distractors for Brian. But as I told you, he's using it for tutoring and teaching, and so am I. So we're not really concerned about this thing being as clean as perhaps some of the other correlated exams that Brian has for the other exams. Whoop. Direct participation programs are considered, I think what Brian's getting at here in 13 is we have partnerships that are private placements. And if it's a private placement, accredited asset means to be a participant, you have to be an accredited investor. I think I would have got this with the Sesame Street trick, and I'm not sure when Brian's teaching using these questions, what he would tell you about the question. That would be my spin on what he's trying to get at in this question. There are also public partnerships, but partnerships in general are pretty testable on 24. So anytime you're studying and you come up with a partnership question, or you're reading your book and you see something about direct participation program partnerships, man, do get out that highlighter, do take a note, maybe have a stack of 3x5 cards or 4x6 cards next to you as you're testing for questions that you know are going to perhaps be aim and shoot, point and click. Broker rules. Registered rep that signed conduct rules is leaving the firm and taking customers with him. BD can stop all ACATs? No, BD cannot. The ACAT is the automated customer account transfer system. No. So, B, you're not supposed to do that. I don't think this would be the answer set, but, discrepancies, things you can't stop that process, basically. If we have a monies dispute, we work on it separately. So the answer to that question is B. 15, registered representative is leaving company where he didn't sign conduct rules. The BD is trying to get in front of customers' outflow. This, when you leave, that's exactly what they're going to do. Your manager will call in the reps and say, hey, why don't you try and keep this guy or gal? Restraining order again, for restraining order, again, our actions. Again, the point is, if you get a question on your 24 about delaying the ACAT process, the answer is the former broker dealer cannot do so. That's the test question. Stabilization is very testable, very, very testable. So stabilization is a legal form of pegging. I have in the 24 playlist, I have a lecture on no pegging, I call it, because that's what stabilization is. It's a legal form of pegging. Nobody's going to buy my new stock in the firm commitment underwriting. In the comment section, let me know. I've made a corporate finance. I got a couple things in the playlist for you already, but it's dawned on me that I could probably do a 30, 40-minute riff just on questions on 24 about firm commitment underwritings. And I already have one on banking, but I'm thinking about just doing one on firm commitment underwritings, all the questions associated with that. So that's test question. It's for firm commitment underwritings. It's a legal form of pegging. It can only be done by one syndicate member. It doesn't have to be the manager. It's called the stabilization agent. It could be anybody. It's got to be at or below the public offering price, and it has to be in the prospectus. And better to have it in the prospectus and not need it than need it and not have it. So, if you want to star number 16 or make a flashcard, you really need to have a handle on everything surrounding as a test taker stabilization. 17, what is considered a statutory disqualification? Yeah, it's any felony. So it doesn't matter, it's a DUI, any felony. Gambling debt, no. I mean, these might be problems, but statutory disqualification means you can be disqualified by statute without an explanation from either the SEC or FINRA. The others, they could still do it, but then they have to tell you why it's in the public interest. So A. A broker has to keep wire transfers of falling amounts, $3,000. I've never heard anybody on debrief. Now remember, Brian may be getting different debrief than Dean. I'm not sure of his teaching questions. Some of them were formed by debrief, but I haven't heard anything about a $3,000 on a wire transfer. What falls under Rule 144? Very testable. 144, registered stock of a director or issuer. Sounds pretty good, right? Controlled persons, officers, directors, principal stockholders are always subject to the volume limitations of 144, regardless of how they got to stock. So whether it's registered stock or unregistered stock, doesn't matter. They're always going to be subject to the volume limitations. So the answer is A. Let's see what brother of the president, registered stock. No, that means his brother bought in the open market. Unregistered stock means got directly from the issuer. There might be a holding period on that. Unregistered stock, yeah. So given that answer set, A is the best answer. Oates has been changed. Oates is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Oates. And the new one is, I think it's CAT or something. Nobody's seen any questions because that's typically what they do. They, remove it and then they re-enter it at some point when it becomes testable again. So Oates is gone. What is not an appropriate transaction? Principal sells at 25, stock he bought for last week at 15. Well, no, if the contemporaneous price is now 25, I mean, I'm entitled to that. I don't have to sell at 15 if the price market has moved. A principal selling 100 shares at 46 when the market quote out there is 40.43. That seems like a pretty high markup to me. I mean, that's a $3 markup. When I'm selling, that's a markup. When principal dealer or synonymous, and mark down when I'm buying. So as a principal, I sell at my ask price, and I'm selling this at 46, and the market closed 40.43. 43 sounds a little unreasonable. $3 a share. Woo, that sounds rich. I like to use in these questions what I call the Sesame Street trick. One of these things is not like the other. There's 100 at 20 and a half. There's a market that seems reasonable. 10% at a direct participation broker IPI. No, that's the max. But many of us do charge that. So given that answer set, it's a B. It's B. Get a good handle on the inside markup, which is the highest bid and the lowest ask. Make sure you got the markup and markdown from whose perspective. I have a very good lecture on market making. I highly recommend it. No surprise. I also have another one, I believe, on limit order protection that goes into that. And what's the other one? Oh, on locked and cross markets. Make sure you got a handle on all that. Firm becomes subject to an involuntary lapse in their clearing agreement. So I don't know, probably some of you listening to this use National Financial or use Pershing as your clearing firm, or I think it's now Hill, used to be Southwest Securities. And if you're using a clearing firm and they involuntarily lapse, that means they won't clear your trades. And the firm becomes subject to a lapse and withdraws from FINRA NASDAQ trade reporting facility, which the volume has to be filed before it can start reporting again. They need a copy of your clearing broker dealer agreement. We need to find out. FINRA is going to want to know what's going on with you and the clearing. 23 REITs holdings and BD providing valuations to customers can use price 18 months from the last REIT published statement. That is minutia, but I kind of like that minutia is potential test fodder. And again, I think what I would do is turn that into a poor man's flashcard. I've had people tell me they got something about 18 months. Maybe this is it. Because usually, statements are quarterly unless it's a penny stock. So I like that one. Let's get rid of that. Books and records requirements of the BD are not fitting any pre-described period of retention. How many years will you keep them? Now, I would have struggled looking for a 3-year answer, but Brian doesn't offer me 3, so I'm going to take 6. 6 is items of original entry. There's no record that you're held accountable for that is 9. And there's no record you're held accountable for that is 8. There is a 5-year record, however. And the 5-year record are the money laundering records, CTRs and SARs. Those are 5-year records. The vast majority of brokerage firm records are 3. And then lifetime, very few records are lifetime. So lifetime 6, everything else is 3. By the way, the lifetime, good mnemonic for that is SPAM. SPAM, that stands for stock certificates, owners of the firm. If it's a partnership agreement, articles of incorporation, and minutes of the directors' board meetings. Firm owned by a firm that is going through an IPO. This is a self-underwriting. There's a control relationship here. This is very testable. Which of the following accounts would need permission prior to trading? So I call you up and I say, hey, did you hear? I'm Goldman Sachs broker. Goldman Sachs is going public, the holding company, and I think you should buy 1,000 shares. You say, well, then you have discretionary authority on my account. If you think I should buy 1,000 shares, just go ahead and buy it. I don't know why you bothered. And I said, well, I can't use my discretionary authority when there's a control relationship. By the way, this is not only for IPOs. If you're a Merrill Lynch broker, I call you up and I say, hey, have you been following what's going on with Bank of America, our parent company? Good things. I think you should buy 1,000 shares of Bank of America. And you say, well, Dean, you have discretionary authority on my account. If you think I should buy it, I don't know why you bothered me. I said, well, I can't use discretionary authority when there's a control relationship. I need to have your permission. By the way, that ticket would mark solicited, discretion not exercised. Solicited meaning was my idea. Discretion not exercised meaning I got your permission. I like that. You're going to get some test questions about control relationships and self-underwriting, infinite underwriters. I have that in my lecture on banking. I believe I have it in banking. It's either banking or fiscal responsibility. The following will need delivery of a prospectus. An interstate offering of a primary issue is going to be done through coordination with the various state administrators, and that's a traditional IPO. An interstate offering would be Rule 147. There's a safe harbor for that, so I don't have to make a registration statement. An open-end company can be done with a summary prospectus, closed-end trade supply and demand. I'm not so sure I like this question, but oh well. 27, market maker acting as an underwriter for an additional issue wishing to enter a stabilizing bid. Which of the following can he enter? So market making, acting as an underwriter for an additional. So this means, again, the language I think is so tough. It's like learning a foreign language. So additional issue means we're doing a follow-on here. That's what that means in English. For an additional issue. Once they enter a stabilizing bid, it's got to be which of the can he enter? Equal to the current price. Yeah. You're going to get something we said as, stabilizing bids. By the way, it's not a bid and ask. It's a one-sided quote. Make sure you got that. In NASDAQ environment, who can enter quotes for a particular issue? Who can enter quotes for a particular issue? Any trader on the desk with access to a terminal. Come on. Only trader trading the issue. Now, our 57s, those are our traders, are kind of interchangeable in terms of where I put them. A market maker only. Yeah, I would know that to say you're a market maker means you have on NASDAQ, a level 3 NASDAQ data feed. And it's the market maker that enters the quote, not the individual who represents the market maker, but the answer here is C. And then make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you are very clear about locked and cross markets. Whoever the market maker is that is using their level 3 data feed to enter a quote or change their quote, they can make sure they don't walk across the market. And again, there's a lecture in the playlist for you on locked and cross markets. I think let me know what you prefer. I have narrative lectures, and then those are like an hour, and then I have these little carve outs of other things. I think that carve out for locked and cross markets is only 15-20 minutes. So I don't mind the longer ones because I assume like in this, right, you can hit the pause button and take a break. So 29, issue under 50C can do the following. General advertising of the broker private placement services as well. I think what Brian's trying to get at here, and I would make a distinction here with 506B and C. With 506C, I can make a general advertisement, but I can only have accredited investors in it. I think that was Brian is getting at here, that you can solicit. So I would put 506C. Now, if it's a 506B, you can have up to 35 non-accredited investors that you can't solicit. And then you have to make sure that you've done some due diligence in making sure everybody's accredited before you give them access to what's called the data room. So again, make sure you're pretty clear on private placements and the rules about 506Bs and 506Cs. Let's see, Tombstone I could toss out. Yeah, I think I would have got this by process of elimination. Now, I'm not saying use tricks to pass the test, but the other thing that Brian falls prey to here as a test taker is too long to be wrong. Too long to be wrong. So that B answer, look how long that thing is. And a lot of times people are writing questions, whether it's myself or Brian, sometimes we start with the answer to the question, then we backfill the distractors leading to why this trick sometimes works. I suggest learning the information. In a Reg A offering, Reg A has recently been changed up to 75 million in total. As I mentioned to you, what they do when something's changed, they remove it and then they reintroduce it at some future time. Not yet, nobody's seen it, to reflect those changes. So right now, I think you're Reg A free in terms of the test. But what is the highest allowed investment? 10% of your income or net worth. And again, I haven't anybody tell me they've seen that. Direct participation programs, partnerships that are approved pricing transparency. What can one do? So what can you do to provide additional transparency in a private, in a direct participation program? Ask REITs for an extra statement. Well, REITs aren't direct participation programs. Used a published price and estimate current. That sounds pretty good. Use a third-party provider to do quarterly statements, price to estimate the current value. We don't do monthly statements. So it looks like I'm going to do B or C. And I think I would have done for C in this one. That would be my choice. I'm not sure what Brian was looking for in this choice, but I would have chose C. Who knows? Maybe I get it right, maybe I get it wrong. 32. Again, very, very testable, this idea of foreign broker dealer. So anytime you're studying it's a foreign broker dealer or a foreign issuer, it's Reg S, whatever it is, make sure you are on top of that as a test taker. So BDA is a U.S. entity, has a clearing agreement with BDB, a non-U.S. entity. I think that's a typo, entity. Which of the following must happen? BDA, the U.S. entity, has to file with FINRA. There's no exception to filing with FINRA, right? Your clearing agreement is part of that. 33, independent research analyst is providing research report to a broker dealer. He can best be described as employed by the BD with no chance of influencing content. That's the answer Brian was looking for in terms of sharing with you. Is compensated by BD can receive inputs now, very testable. There has to be a barrier between research and banking. And, we're trying to protect the research analysts. We've had major problems with when banking used to supervise research, and I'd come to you as your banker who you work for in the old days, and I'd say, listen, I need you to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And so, no. Receive inputs. I'm supposed to be protected. Is paid as contracted employee, and the firm has no chance of employing it. So no, cannot be compensated. Yeah, A is the best definition of independent, right? No chance of influencing the content means I'm truly independent. Which of the following reported using the over-the-counter reporting facility? Rule 144A stocks. I would know about 144A is primarily for QIBs to buy and sell securities. QIB is a qualified institutional buyer of securities, 100 million or more in assets under management, and they can trade and they still have a responsibility to report trades. And so they're going to use the over-the-counter reporting facility to do that. I'll probably regret this, but an example would be unregistered stock, and like Tesla, for example, T. Rowe Price and BlackRock are trading amongst themselves. RR has a password-protected website with 150 clients having access to it. The post of assure it's considered communication, and it's retail, so that means a pre-distribution principal approval. So over and over and over again, regulators have said they make no distinction between electronic communication and old-fashioned, snail mail, dead tree communication. 36. A customer of a registered rep opens an account and changes the address, and 2 years later gets married and changes his name. What is the duration the RR has to keep records once you close the account? It's 3 years. The vast majority of brokerage firm records are 3 years. 37. What is a WKSI? Now, maybe Brian has had people tell him they got tested on the definition. I have not had people on debrief tell me they got tested on the definition, but rather what a well-known seasoned issuer of securities can do. And what they can do is they can take down their shelves. Their shelves are good for 3 years instead of 2. A shelf registration is good for 3 years instead of 2. And their shelf registrations are immediately effective, So make sure that WKSIs have 3-year shelves and they're immediately effective. And, that's the test issue. 38 is stupid but testable. I have a whole lecture on this, that the SRO minimum is 2,000. So if you buy less than 2, it's going to be fully paid for. Between $2,000 and $4,000, which this is, it's $2,000. Stupid but testable. Check the playlist. I've got a whole little 15-minute thing on this. It's it's in every exam. It's on the SEE. It's on the 7. It's everywhere. Customer signed the arbitration agreement, which is true. Yeah, be careful here. Brian is, I think, again, trying to bait us a little bit. The customer can bring any issue up for arbitration. I don't think that's the test issue. The test issue is employees of the broker-dealer are not held to arbitration for HR issues, like sexual discrimination or age discrimination, stuff like that. The answer here is indeed D. Which of the following best describes a fairness opinion? Fairness opinion. Opinion by the member firm is to credit whether pricing is fair concerning a change in control of the company. Absolutely. Very testable. I also have to disclose any conflicts of interest I may have and written in the fairness opinion, confirming compensation or having been their underwriter, whatever that is. So make sure if you're taking notes on, this is kind of a kickoff to further study, add fairness opinions to that. We talked about stabilization, fairness opinions, control relationships. These are all common things that you have to do. B. 41, a member firm hires registered reps from ABC BD that was recently shut down. What should the hiring firm be concerned with? This is very much a test issue. And the point here is then the vendor is going to make us tape. We have that. So it's the total percentage. Looks like Brian hasn't yet come up with some distractors. My guess is at some point, Brian will add distractors to these teaching tools, remove the highlight, and then, make it like his other products where there's a tier and you can buy just the practice exam, and or you can buy the quick notes, or you can buy all in. Right now, as I mentioned to you, this document, Brian's been kind enough to let us use it as a teaching tool because I said, hey, we still like to have questions. So he was kind enough to provide this to us, even though it's not really something he sells as a separate thing. So you got to buy the videos to get the hard copy of this. Anyways, what type of underwriting commitment allows for green shoe? Yeah, it's a firm commitment. And I would also know that we can expand it up to 15%. So firm commitment, and we can expand it. If I have a good customer who wants the stock, I want to be able to short it to them. Like Fidelity says, we want 15 million shares. I said, okay, and I'll use my green shoe to do that. Market center efficient reports by exchanges and NASDAQ are required monthly. A lot of minutia on 24. So these aim and shoot point click questions. You might want to make sure you get a designated reviewing member must review RR's personal accounts at other firms quarterly. A new BD first inspection at 6 months, not operational yet. What can you do? They can inspect in 6 months. Which individual is required to be fingerprint? Anybody who handles transactions or securities. All U4 cards are accompanied with a fingerprint card as well. Tape recording, we said the vast majority of brokerage firm records are 3 years, including taping. What is the maximum allowable time to process an account application for a variable annuity? I don't think this is only just variable annuity, it's like mutual funds, but it's 7 days. Which of the following is not suitable for a structured reverse convertible? These things are crazy. A reverse convertible is a put where the issuer can make you take the equity in lieu payment. So you don't choose to convert the equity, the issuer chooses to convert you, right? So these have become a major kind of a regulatory issue. And I can do this with the Sesame Street trick, right? The Sesame Street kicker. One of these things is not like the other. Seniors are protected species, right? In a Reg A offering, a RR registered rep can talk to a prospective client prior to an offering circular in a tier 2. That's where we go for more money. As I told you, right now, nobody's seeing any Reg A questions because it's been revised. And then, as I said, they'll reintroduce those as experimental questions, and they'll be once again testable. Reg S, very testable. When a Reg S debt offering, a foreign issuer sells a debt offering to a member firm. So be careful here. This is a foreign issuer selling this to Goldman Sachs, for example. How long is the lockup period? 40 days. Now, I don't think this is the one I hear on debrief. The one I hear on debrief that people encounter all the time is if we do a Reg S offering for a domestic issuer and we sell it to an offshore institutional investor in Europe or Asia or South America or Africa, the holdup on that stock, that unregistered stock, would be 6 months. So I see here that Brian is testing on 40 days for Reg S debt offering, but I would be very familiar with a Reg S equity offering by U.S. domestic company issuing shares offshore to a foreign institutional investor, and that would be 6 month lockup. After 350, the inside quote falls below 25. A passive market maker would then be required to remain at their bid until 330. I have a whole separate lecture on what passive means and what you can and can't do as a passive market maker. Make sure you do that. That's in the lecture called No Pegging, because what we're trying to prevent is the passive market maker. These are what we call very testable terms, safe harbors. So if you are going to be involved in the secondary market, to prevent shenanigans, we allow you to participate because we don't want liquidity to not be there for investors and people who are trading, but there's going to be a certain safe harbors that you have to follow to stay out of trouble. So anyways, the answer there is C. How long would one have to file after being determined to be an insider? 10 days, aim and shoot, point and click. When supervising an emerging growth offering, which is true, the analyst is allowed to attend the roadshow. It looks like Brian's working for some distractors here, but yeah, it's called coming over the wall. So they're allowed to do that. 55. If a member firm is underwriting an initial public offering for ABCD Corp, a new issue that qualifies for NASDAQ, a prospectus must be provided to all purchasers for how many days following the effective date? 25. This is a testable answer set. So whether it's 25, 40, or 90 depends on what the situation is. The situation here is 25 days. When can two competing market makers do that is allowed? Agree to not trade with a third market maker. No, you're not supposed to collude, so you should know that. Collude means you can't agree on a quote spread. So given that, we know it's a plan for a block trade outside the posted market. I would know that outside of the market, the inside market is called a trade through. And make sure you know the safe harbors on a trade through. Okay, meaning you did a trade that's below your the highest bid or above the lowest ask. Very testable. What time is a trade? What time is 8 to 12 trade reported? T+1 by 8:15. I wouldn't worry about that. Alternative display facility, all these functions except. So alternative display serves all these functions except. Can't remember the choices, but this was tough. Include or execution quotes and auto quote refresh. So I would have answered this with executions. So it looks like Brian put a question in here based on something somebody saw and reported to Brian, and he's building this out. So I can't remember the choices, but it was tough, and I would have gone with executions. Yeah, it's the plumbing. So don't confuse the front end execution systems with either the display systems or the back end plumbing and reporting. Those are different things. Trace is very testable. It's very testable. Trade reporting and compliance engine. It's dual side reporting. That's what C means. C in English or in test language. That's dual side reporting. And that's very different than all the other reporting. And all the other reporting is usually the sell side that reports within 10 seconds. But Trace is dual side reporting, and it's within 15 minutes. It's primarily for debt security. So again, if you're making flashcards, make one for Trace. 60, which defines a firm promoting day trading. So I tell you, hey, we're all about day trading over here at Dewey Cheatham and House. So why don't you come day trade with us? So which of the following? So which defines a firm promoting? Lower execution for multiple trades? That doesn't sound like promotion. Promotion is a bad word. I get in trouble in social media. I come from the sales side of our business. So I promote my channel. I promote, TestGeek Exam Prep LLC in a way that isn't bad. Leading people to make good decisions is okay. What's not okay is leading people to make bad decisions. And so that's manipulation, and that's a problem. So A doesn't sound like I'm manipulating anybody. But I can tell you the regulators, 24, when you see the word promote, you got to think, okay, they think of that as being negative. A website that allows you multiple entries of intraday trades, I don't think that's that promoting in a bad way. Gathering information on trading experience, no. Promoting frequent way, no, D, outrageous, right? So here promoting is being used in a derogatory sense. Order report on our short sale, we're long 500, we're short 200, and then we sell 500. So it looks like our net position was 300, right? So we're going to net this 500, 200 means 300. What this customer has probably done is gone short against the box for what's called 200. I said, listen, don't sell my shares. I have 500. Sell 200 borrowed shares and put 200 of mine in the box, the vault, leaving with a net long position of 300. And I sell 500, so that's going to be C. I don't think that's really what the test implication is here. I brought up the test implication earlier. Just let me show you what the test implication is here. So the test implication, let's get rid of this. And it's not really, these answer sets. On the test, what I'm going to ask you, or perhaps ask you, is how many shares can this customer tender? And you would tell me in that scenario, that customer can tender 300 shares. If there's a tender offers where company A is offering to buy company B, and this is company B, and I have 300 shares of company B. I don't have 500. So I can accept company A's tender for only 300 shares. That is, I think, more likely what you're going to encounter on your sale. What describes an investment advisor? Investment advisors give investment advice. They tell people their business of giving investment advice, and they want compensation. So that is A. That is A. For purposes of riskless and simultaneous transactions, I love this one. If you decide to go all in on Brian's videos, as I mentioned on this one, I'm a big fan of this one. That is almost an aim and shoot point and click performance opportunity on the exam. So given that there, I did a riskless timeless simultaneous read, I have no inventory risk. It's going to be whatever the market was at the time I did that. A registered rep obtains customer information from a bank trustee and registrar for security ABC. How can the contact information be used? I like this. We can only use information we obtained in a fiduciary capacity for the purpose of that which it was given us. So if I have the customer information here, how can I use it? Only for the purpose it was given to me. So B, that is testable. They call that on the test misuse of information obtained in a fiduciary capacity. Big no-no. A registered rep intends to open an account for customer that states they're a sophisticated institutional customer. To what level of assets that the customer qualifies as an institutional investor, it's 50 million. I'm not a big fan of this as a definitional question, but it's an unnatural person. A 5K introducing broker-dealer, I would know this, can accept checks in the name of the broker-dealer. So if I'm a $5,000 broker-dealer, I'm, not supposed to be even accepting those, but, for prompt forwarding, perhaps. But I don't even like that. But given this answer set, that's my best answer. That's my best answer. You should definitely know C isn't true, D isn't true. And participate in a syndicate group. If you're the 50 guy, 50,000 can do firm commitment selling group activity, and you can't do syndicate. So not a big fan of the question personally, but A is the best answer given the answer set. For a non-registered REIT, non-registered means private. So private placement, that's what non-registered. Registered REITs trade on the New York or NASDAQ, like Boston Properties, BXP. So what is considered a liquidity event? Declaration of year-end dividends, and merger with another REIT, and a public offering, and a private offering. Yeah, that's how they raise their money typically. So given that answer set, I would have answered D. I'll take some notes and call Brian. But I would know the test point is non-registered REITs for test purposes are considered private placements, and therefore raising the money would be through a private offering, and they're getting the liquidity they need to go buy real estate. Don't open a special account for customers for. I'm not sure here. There's special cash account doesn't need a cash account, and a cash account is where we intend to pay in full. So it looks like Brian, maybe this is based on debrief and hasn't decided what the real test issue is here. Perhaps as a teaching tool, I think what I would have done: don't open special cash accounts for customers for. That's a tough one. It depends on what kind of options. I'm going to go for firm commitment, because in a firm commitment, we're not supposed to be accepting monies until we do that. So I'm going to go for A on that one. I might have missed that. I don't know. Told you I'm willing to tell you why I answered an answer. If you think I'm wrong, put it in the comment box. More than happy to have that. 24 is more like peers than we are teacher student. I mean, so and again, as I told you, if you don't like my explanation, Brian is more than happy to have you call him up and say, hey, I just watched Dean's explication of your teaching questions, and I got a question on 68. You don't have to buy the videos to talk to Brian about his questions. 69, for a non-emergent growth issue, what is the earliest you can publish a research report? That would be 3 calendar days. Again, I haven't had anybody tell me they've seen that. This is very testable. I have a video for it already, and I told you it's very testable. The way we do this is we take the debit register and we divide by 0.75. That is very testable. When I ask people, did you have to use your calculator on the 24? Many times people tell me no. But when they tell me yes, this is what they had to do. So hopefully when I take 12,000, divide by 0.75, I get 16, and I do. So $16,000. Make sure you can do that. That's very testable. I don't know of any draw of the 24. Your 24 draw, I'm wishing for you a dream draw. Everything you study shows up, and you go, I don't know what the big deal is. We certainly don't want to face a death draw where you go, oh my God, you're slogging your way through this thing. But I don't know of any draw in terms of probability. That's what the draws are about. Low probability, high probability. This question is very high probability on your exam. Who can or can't do Reg A offering? Yeah, I'm not sure on that one either. That looks like that one's still under construction. So I'm not sure what Brian's looking on that one. 72 looks like it's under construction. Preliminary overview. I like that. I think that's going to be Brian's A answer for that. Restriction period for an additional offering that has less than 25 million public float is 5 days. Debt issue with a concession, customer pays par. Yeah, what the spread is built into it is what Brian's getting at here. So, what I've got built into that doesn't show up to the customer. It's going to be the customer's offering price. Shelf registration is required except. So shelf registration required except. S3 is what we use for shelves. Must use an underwriter. Used to offer securities on a delayed continual basis. That's true. Given that answer, so I'll go for C. I'll go for C. And then remember, make sure you know the difference on the WKSI, right? There's WKSI is 3 years and immediately effective. We change the branch address. We notify FINRA within 30 days. Forward-looking info. They usually, we're allowed to provide forward-looking info, but to have the safe harbor, we have to tell you, I'll give you a disclosure that, forward-looking statements may or may not prove to be true. So there'd be some disclosure made in what's called a forward-looking statement. So it would become just future operations, right? We don't really know about that. So non-disclosure of reasons for projected. No, the whole point about a forward-looking statement is this idea is we're allowed to give forward-looking statements about the issuer, but then we have to add the disclosure that they may not prove to be correct, right? For whatever reason. 78 is aim and shoot point blank test question. Tender offers have to be open for 20 days. The target company, very testable for the tender company. B is the target. They have 10 days to respond to tell you what they think you should do. So in terms of your, flashcards, make sure you got tender offers down. Fairness opinion would include all except how to vote. No, fairness just tells you whether the offer has been deemed to be fair. Whether you want to accept it is a different issue. Halt trading for over-the-counter bulletin board. Halt trading if there's, when we discover there's insider trading or people are trading on material and non-public information. Affirmative determination is not required. Affirmative determination means somebody has to sign some kind of a disclosure document. It's not required for corporate debt securities. Yeah, I'm not sure what Brian's getting at in question 81 here. Fail to deliver, yeah, we're going to close out, right? So if you have failed to deliver to me, I'm the buying broker dealer, you're the selling broker dealer, and you have failed to deliver to me. I'm going to close you out. And the way I'm going to close you out is by doing what's called a buy-in. I'm going to buy in the missing security. If it costs me more, I'm going to charge you for it. Foreign broker dealers can accept unsolicited orders from U.S. citizens. That sounds fine. Unsolicited always okay on the test. You're unsolicited in the answer set, go for it. Insurance is a non-securities product. So insurance is a non-securities product. Fixed annuities is a non-securities product. So again, I'm not so sure what Brian's getting at in question 84, but I would definitely know that on the test 24, they say non-securities product, they mean insurance, fixed annuities. Not variables, by the way, because the variable remember has that embedded sub-account or separate account. Bank invites registered rep a few hours per week to meet with prospective mutual fund clients. Client signs in, they can be solicited. Yeah, I like this cross solicitation. I think was Brian's getting at here. I just read where Merrill Lynch is not teaching baby brokers to make cold calls anymore. And they said they think it's not an efficient way to prospect. And they think they have all kinds of cross solicitation opportunities with Bank of America. So if I'm a Bank of America customer and now Merrill Lynch wants to solicit me, I have to get permission to do that. So given this answer set, A is the best answer. So cross solicitation requires requires customer consent. Business continuity plan must include 2 business contact persons. That's very testable. It's got to be 24s. They got to be series 24s that are contact persons. That makes sense. There's got to be a link on the website to the business continuity plan or a link that tells you how to get the business continuity plan. So make sure you know about the 2 links to every broker dealer website. You have to have a link to a broker check, and then you also have to have a link offering either giving you the business continuity plan or offering it to you. By the way, that has to be, I'd also know that it has to be reviewed annually. So you have to check this thing, make sure those contact persons are still the same persons. It used to drive me nuts. worked my way through college as a graveyard security officer at a major office retail hotel complex. And I'd call somebody at 3 a.m. Like, I haven't worked there in 6 years. So, it's embarrassing, right? I said, I apologize. So we got to every annually check this, update it, make sure it's all copacetic. Contest wholesaler can sponsor. Very testable. Gift or gratuity rule. Wholesalers represent another member firm. And I always tell my baby brokers, man, a wholesaler can be a strategic resource for a baby broker. I said, why don't you baby broker? Baby broker, by the way, is not derogatory. That's a term of endearment. Anyways, I said, why don't you look at our approved product list, see what mutual fund families we have on there. And why don't you call up and have a wholesaler take you lunch for American funds or Franklin funds or, whatever the fund happens to be. And telling you why why you should sell their product. And no problem. The wholesaler says, hey, why don't you invite your prospects and clients to a dinner this evening? I'll come talk about professional management, diversification, ease of ownership. Very okay. That's a normal deductible business activity. I would have never made it past baby broker stage without the help of my wholesaler. I think I knows how to sell. He's got an expense account. Now, what we don't want to have happen is where now my rep gets compromised by the wholesaler. And instead of representing our firm and its customers, is representing the wholesaler and their firm. So the max gift or gratuity rule, very testable, is $100. Doesn't count normal deductible business expense. And then A, what Brian is offering here to a choice is infrequent tickets to a sports event that the wholesaler attends. I remember one time I was going to a Warrior game and I invited somebody. He goes, well, Dean, I can't go unless you're there. I said, I am going to be there. He goes, oh, I'm going to be sitting on the floor with you. I said, no, you got to be about 50 rows back, but I will be there. So I would be prepared to encounter that on your exam. 88. Old broker dealer responsible for making changes to an employee's U5 after termination. All the following are true, except, if it were me, I would get rid of the D choice here, which is the right answer. And what I would do is turn this in again to a poor man's flashcard. And what I would do here is put 1, 2, 3. And now I have the things that are truthful. A is very testable. Oh, A is very testable. Let me get a smaller font here. So inaccurate, right? If we need to change it, that, by the way, that's very testable. By the way, it doesn't have to be old broker dealer. It could be anything on the U4 that is a no is now a yes. You definitely need to know that an amendment needs to be made to the U4 within 30 days. All is required from the firm CE except. Yeah, you should know about the firm element of CE. There's regulatory CE and there's firm CE. Number of employees, okay, whatever. I'm not a big fan of that question. Time and price, discretion is allowed only for the day order. Remember, what constitutes taking discretion is action, asset, amount. I find 24 sometimes it's been a long time since they had a 7. And all orders are considered day orders unless you tell me differently, unless you make it GTC. If you need to kind of update yourself on orders, I have a lecture on the Series 7 playlist on orders. And please make sure principles. You've got to have down the difference between a market order and a limit order. And you can't do limit order protection rules if you don't know that distinction. So I'll leave it to you to make sure you are up to speed on that. When I lose somebody, when I teach a 24 class, I have 20 people in it. I'm not surprised if everybody passes. And when I lose people, maybe I lose 2, I don't lose a whole bunch of people. But you know who you are if you're at risk. The people I typically lose who struggle on 24 are people who it's been a long, long time since they had their 7. And now they're doing packaged products like mutual funds. And now they're coming to the 24, and this trading stuff and banking stuff is, different than stuff they've been dealing with over the last 15, 20 years. So you know who you are. If you need to brush up on some stuff, just go to the 7 playlist on the channel. There's all kinds of stuff there. I think the biggest one I would recommend for you is the types of orders. And then the 24 playlist has some stuff for you as well. Yeah, broker dealers aren't fiduciaries. Broker dealers represent themselves. Investment advisory firms are indeed fiduciaries. That's a higher standard. And I would know that distinction. Customer account statements are done quarterly. So I'm not sure what Brian was going to put here, disclosure on the statement, separate page, and include mail statements. But the test question about customer account statements is they're quarterly, unless you have a penny stock, and then it's monthly. And the penny stock is a non-NASDAQ OTC stock under 5. 93, customers request transfer accounts to RR changing firms. Liquidating transfer within 30 days, transfer in 60 days, checks with compliance, liens. By the way, what D means is the customer owes us money. So if there are liens or amounts owed by the customer, we can deny the transfer. It means they owe us money. Low price securities, we have to give you a suitability statement. I think on the test, you'll see this not as low price securities, but as penny stocks, a non-NASDAQ OTC stock under 5. Which of the following are retail communications? The vast majority of brokerage firm records are 3 years. Which is not considered written communication? Written communication, public appearances. Yeah, I think I got this right with the Sesame Street trick. Because that's contemporaneous, right? There's no written thing of it. Investments analysis tools are on the exam, and they are considered to be, again, you have to make disclosures that past performance is not indicative of future results. So I would expect a question like that. I'm not sure if B is, what you're going to encounter on the test is your answer. If you're given that question, that's the best answer. Prospectus 9 months old. In order to change info, it has to be under 16 months old. Variable life. I haven't had anybody on debrief tell me they've seen anything about variable life. The rating of the insurance company is not equal to the evaluation of the separate account. Remember, because the separate account is a mutual fund. So that's the embedded securities product that's in that. So research analyst pay based on fairness, reviewed by committee. Yeah, the test question here is that the research analyst pay can't be based on investment banking. So the biggest test issue is C, that is not true. We cannot pay analysts based on investment banking work. We had some research analysts like Jack Grumman, for example, Smith Barney was making $20 million a year, not because he was making good recommendations to Smith Barney retail customers, but rather he was winning underwriting business for Smith Barney. And we had a huge problem. We went back and made all kinds of new rules, and that's certainly one of them. So B is the right answer, but make sure you know C. They cannot be based on investment banking. And then remember, I told you the other one, very testable. The research analyst cannot report to the banking department. They have to have separate supervision from the bankers, because otherwise the bankers can intimidate them. 101, alternative method for capital requirements. That's just definitional, aim and shoot, point and click. The greater 250 or 2% of debits in the reserve calculation. Who is responsible for verifying guarantee of a signature to transfer the security, the selling broker dealer? What I would know here, this is called the Uniform Practice Code, which standardizes practices in secondary trading in the securities industry. And I would know here that we don't recognize notaries. So we have to have the signature guaranteed, and it has to be technically correct. It can be guaranteed by a commercial bank, a member of the New York Stock Exchange, or the holder of a medallion stamp. Cash on delivery is required except the address of the agent. I'm not sure what Brian's getting at here, but cash on delivery or DVP, delivery versus payment, or RVP, receipt versus payment. I haven't had anybody tell me they've seen any of these in a long time, but what they used to love to ask is you have up to 35 calendar days to accomplish the delivery. Nobody's going to take 35 days because I want my money and I want it like now. So 104. A when issued security must be delivered 2 days after the security becomes available. Okay. What can trade on the over-the-counter bulletin board? So yeah, delisted. I call the over-the-counter bulletin board and the pinks, not all of them, but Homes for Fallen Angels. So, if you get booted from NASDAQ or New York, you can go to the bulletin board. I know if you're on the bulletin board, you still have to be current with your financial reporting with the SEC, your 10Qs and 10Ks. And then if you're not, then you can get booted to what's called the pink sheets. And then I would know how you become a market maker on the bulletin board or the pink sheets, Form 211 or piggybacking for the bulletin board. And then I would know that I can not file the Form 211 if I were your NASDAQ market maker before you got booted, if it's NASDAQ we're talking about. We talked about trace. We said it's primarily which security is eligible for debt securities. And so Ginnie Mae would be the one there. I know the muni bonds have their own, and muni bonds is called EMA. So the reporting system for munis is the Electronic Municipal Market Access, EMA. So A. Shredding, I disagree a little bit here with Brian. Shredding, sometimes we want to turn it into more orders to get more money. That's certainly what Brian has in mind here, and that's certainly prohibited. But again, you're not supposed to shred is the main point, right? Because it defeats the reporting requirements. Now this is interesting. How much can a BD lend a client if it has 25,000 mark value, $10,000 debit? I wouldn't overdose. I would not overdose on margin. But so let me get a bigger font here. Should a general securities principle know the classical margin equation? I think yes. The answer to that is yes. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just marking the account to market. Let's see, the debit is 10. I think the best analogy is like a home. Market value of the home minus mortgage on the home equals equity. And then what I'm going to do is compare what you have to what's called Reg T, because that's what Reg T says, what I can loan customers. And Reg T is 50% of the market value. So that's called Reg T. And so here, how much can a BD lend to a client account that has 25,000 market value, $10,000 debit? Oh, good news. I know the classical margin equation because team just kind of blew it here. Because I thought, well, that's, nothing can be done for you. You can't do arithmetic. So there we go. Okay, now I'm back in this. Now I'm back in business. So I say, hey, listen, I'm allowed to loan you up to 12,500, and you've only borrowed from me 10,000. So you have 2,500 in excess. You can have that as cash. You say, do I have to do anything today? I said, no, I'll make a special memorandum to your account. And 2 times that is your buying power. So now we just have to be careful what Brian is asking us. If he's asking us how much cash we can have or how much stock can we buy. Again, I do not think it's worth your time on 24 to learn margin to pass the 24. But the answer here is how much can we lend, and what we can lend, how much can, wow, what a jerk my friend Brian is. So we've already lent 10 and we can lend you another 2,500. And so that's how Brian is getting the B answer. Wow, that is much tougher than I think you're going to do. But by the way, if you got the classical margin equation, I go back to Brian's answer set and I go, wow, I'm looking for 2,500. I'm looking for 5,000. It's not offered to me. So what does Brian have offered to me? We're pretending, by the way, we don't know that he's told us the answer is 12.5. But yeah, so it says, how much can we lend? We can lend 12.5. So let me just get my. That's the amount we can lend, is that 12.5. And we've only lent 10, so another 2,500. What so the available times of prospect? That's by definition. Again, that's a good flash, poor man's flashcard, lazy man's flashcard. It's where the phone is ringing. C, I would definitely know that. I would definitely know that. So if you're making flashcards, there's another good one. We have to maintain a do not call list, very testable. 111, a control person has $100,000 worth of control stock that they've held for 2 years. So I mean, it looks like they've met the holding period. The total number of shares is 2 million and the average weekly trading volume is 35,000 shares. How much can they do? I think a good way to remember this is with a memory aid. The memory aid I like is 144. We file the form. The form is good for 90 days. And over that 90-day period, I can sell up to 1% of the outstanding shares. So now Dean is taking 2 million times in by 1%, and I get 20,000 shares, or the average of the last 4 weeks trading volume, whichever is greater. So 144, 1% of the outstanding shares, 1% of the outstanding shares, or the average of the last 4 weeks trading volume up to 4 times a year every 90 days. So the answer is D. I like that one. I would expect you to encounter that at some point in your exam. 112, a branch office ran by an RR, which is true. Customer complaints must be forwarded to the principal at the OSJ. That's true. So that's our 910s who are running a branch, and our 910s are going to have to forward that to us for the OSJ, even if I'm a 24 and it's not an OSJ, retained for 4 years. That's a 4-year record, kind of a funky one, but I would definitely know that. That's worthy of a flashcard. I would also know that the customer complaints have to be handled by a principal of the firm, right? So I expect you to encounter something along those lines. I'd also know what makes an office of supervisory jurisdiction. We're conducting market making, or we have custody. What turns a branch into an OSJ? An OSJ is a branch, but not every branch is an OSJ. The Trust Indenture Act of 1939 is for corporate debt. A market maker has a quote of 2050, 2125. So you really got to get a handle on this. So it's always from the market maker's perspective. I'll play market maker. So I'm willing to buy into my inventory 500 shares at 2050. That's my mark down. And I'm willing to sell out of my inventory, mark up 1,000 shares at 2125. So market maker quotes, how many shares will be executed? Well, here, 1,000 at 2125. In market, how many shares will be executed? I think this question needs some work because it's not really how many shares will be executed quotes. I'm just seeing here whether Brian is giving us any hint about our, who is buying or selling. But if I'm assuming I'm buying, 1,000 at 2125 is what I would sell. 1,000 at 2050, that's just not right. So we could have done process elimination on that one. I think I would have got this to 50-50 on this thing. Oh, by the way, again, Brian, I'm just looking at Brian. Market maker quotes 2050, 2125, 5 by 10. Oh, this has a reverse spread. So I think we found another one not quite ready for prime time. Don't complain to Brian about this because I really did push him to give this to us, even though perhaps he wanted to do some more work. I said, Brian, don't make the perfect be the enemy of the good. People, I think, like questions. And so let's get the questions out there. Anyways, backstage, I'll give Brian a call and say, I'm not sure what you meant on that question. All right, in a proceeds transaction, very testable. For purpose of the 5% policy, a proceeds transaction is when I sell security A to buy security B. And that's considered one transaction for purposes of the 5% policy. So the answer here by definition is B, a combination of the two on the buy side. So that's just by definition. I haven't had anybody ever tell me they had to calculate it. They just had to recognize it. They just had to recognize it. 116. In which would a member firm not be required to pre-file its retail communication? So in which of the following would a member firm not be required? Not previously filed? If you haven't previously filed, I think probably you should probably pre-file. If it ever deals with standard options, always need to be filed. Derivatives, CMOs, all have to be pre-filed, regardless of whether you're established or not. The advertise, there we go. C sounds like the best answer, given that answer set. I would definitely know first-year firm versus established firm, 10 days pre or 10 days post, and I would know what is always going to be 10 days post, regardless of whether you're established or not. Derivatives, rankings not independently prepared, if you're a mutual fund, things like that. The corporate financing department would consider all the following: underwriting compensation, the unreasonable, except I like the Sesame Street trick on this. One of these things is not like the other. I think you would encounter this question. And I really like this question. So, one of these sounds reasonable, the other two, B, C, D, don't, right? So I like this question. I think Brian did a good job on this question here as a teaching tool. I've seen where it's the other way around, where it's not the accept. And so where accept means they're asking what's reasonable. And I've seen where you got to pick out of the answer set what is unreasonable. 3 things are reasonable and 1 that is not. Wow, right? Restrictions for purchase and sales of IPOs are placed on each of the following, except, what we're testing you here is what is not your immediate family. And so immediate family is not going to be D. I would know that the restriction on IPOs in terms of IPO allocation doesn't apply if it's our own company's stock that we're taking public. So if I'm Goldman Sachs and Goldman Sachs going public, I'm Goldman Sachs broker, free writing withholding rules do not apply. I'd also know that if they live under your roof, if it's like your aunt and they're in your roof, then they slide back into being restricted. When a member firm discovers or are notified by their independent public accountant their existing material inadequacy, that's just by definition A. By definition A, right? You notify the regulatory authorities within 24 hours, and then you tell them within 48 hours what you're doing to fix it. That is very much a test question. Perform net capital promptly. No, net capital violation, by the way, would be different reporting. This is called Rule 17A11, reportable events of a broker-dealer. The most egregious reportable event is you're in violation of net cap. That's not what's going on here. What's going on here is you have a material inadequacy. So make sure you've got 17A11 down, reportable events. The answer here is A. That is a good question. That's worthy of, again, I don't know if you want to go all in with Brian on the $87, but if you do and you get this on questions like that again, I think very good poor man's flashcard or lazy man's flashcard, whatever you want to call that. A NASDAQ market maker wishes to make a market of bulletin board stocks. To avoid filing Form 211, this is very testable, piggybacking. This is called piggybacking. If the security is identified as active on 12 of the consecutive 30 days. I have had tell people on debrief tell me they really get in the weeds on this piggybacking thing. And so, and remember I told you if I was their market maker, so that is definitely something to be aware of. Another two back-to-back, two good poor man flashcards or lazy man flashcards. All right, a market maker is quoting. Let's see if we get a better version of this here. A market maker is quoting. Let me get out my annotation tool. So that's my bid and my ask. This is called the size of my quote. And so I'm saying as a market maker that right now I'm willing to buy 1,200 shares into my inventory at 31. I'm willing to sell 500 shares out of my inventory at 31.20. So I'm willing to buy 1,200. I'm willing to sell 500. That's 12 by 5. That's my size. You know, very testable. I don't honor that. Very testable. It's called selling away if I don't honor the size of my quote. All right, so let's see what's up next. So here comes the inside market. Now let's put that there. Alexa, cancel. So the next thing here is this is the highest bid. I can do better than that. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you do what I'm doing. I mean, you don't have to do a deep. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. But if we're me, boy, if I could make my own, exhibit, I'm going to do so. I can do better than that. I would get real comfortable before I answer anything. All right, so if the market maker receives a customer order to buy 200 shares at 31.10, 200 shares at 31.10. Now, it's very important on the test. This is a limit order protection, very testable. That you understand that the customer doesn't have to tell me that this is a limit order. When the customer tells me his price, it's my job to know that that is a limit order. That is a limit order. And the problem here is I want to buy this into my inventory at 31, and my customer wants to buy it at 31.10. Now, if this was a market order the customer wanted to buy, he'd buy at 31.20, but this is called limit order protection. If the customer has a limit order that is the same as mine or better than mine, then I have to display that to the marketplace. I can't pretend that I didn't receive this order. What I used to do in the old days is I would just wait and buy it at 31 and then fill this guy at 31.10. Beats working for a living. And then we had a class action lawsuit with a guy named Mr. Manning. Sometimes you refer to the Manning rules. And so what the heck? I can see your quote. Why aren't you doing something? Now, there are exceptions to this, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to update my quote. And I'm going to say, okay, now outside looking in, this looks like it's deemed, but I'm displaying to the marketplace my customer's order now. And so now my bid is, I'm going to change my bid. Let me get my, by the way, the inside market had nothing to do with answering this question. So I think Brian just gave that to us to kind of throw us off the track. And so my updated quote is going to be 31.10 is my new bid. And that's 200 shares, right? So that's going to be 2 by 5. And that has no effect on my ask, which is 31.20. So I have a whole lecture on this. I like this question. Try and get comfortable with that. The answer is D. The answer is D. Uh, 122, under which of the following conditions would a broker-dealer be required to make an inquiry and determine whether a security has been reported as missing, lost, or stolen? Yeah, new customer, street name, bearer securities. The answer here is D. You won't get a whole lot of uniform practice back office questions, but a couple. I like this one. It's not a problem to your existing customer because you don't think your existing customer is trying to rip you off. You don't think another broker-dealer is trying to rip you off. An issuer, no, issuer's not trying to rip you off. By the way, you make the inquiry to the Security Information Center. So I like that one. Member firms may join with non-members in which of the following domestic underwritings. We can't give concessions, discounts, and allowances to non-members. The exception is a bank when underwriting municipal bonds. Those bonds are exempt. So the answer is D. So if a bank just wants to do munis, they don't have to join FINRA. I don't know of any bank that doesn't want to do other things besides munis, but that's all a bank want to do. The other version of this question, I would know this, excuse me. The other version of this is a foreign broker dealer ineligible for membership. So we're doing an IPO, for example, and this is an Israeli broker dealer. And we're selling the securities in Israel. 124, under federal rules, to open an account for a person associated with a number firm, the executing members do all the following except. So yeah, see, Brian's kind of being a jerk here. That's upon request. C is upon request. A, we're going to do, yep. B, we're going to do. D, we're going to do. Again, I might, if I chose to turn this into a poor man's flashcard, I might decide to get rid of the except here and get rid of the C choice, and then have the ABC as 1, 2, 3 in terms of my annotation. All right, 125. All the following must be approved by a principal before use, except correspondence can be pre or post distribution. So personal letter to a customer is correspondence. B does not require pre-distribution. A, C, and D are going to be considered retail communication. So the answer there is B. Reg S, very testable, permits the sale of unregistered securities by U.S. issuers to foreign institutions. He has non-U.S. residents here, but I would know foreign institutional investors. 127, all the following are applicable to the 5% policy. This is very testable. It does not apply to the primary offer. It doesn't apply to the primary market. It only applies to the secondary market. So I give you a prospectus. This rule goes out the window, right? So it doesn't apply to A. It applies to secondary transactions. So I like this. It's very testable. Remember, on the front page of prospectus, we show you what the spread is. A member firm must compute its fidelity bonding based on its net capital. That's true. It's A, and then I would definitely know you have to review it annually. So I would know it's A, and I would know you review it annually. XYZ has announced a reverse stock split. Which statement is true? All orders below and above the market, all orders get canceled with reverse splits. So I definitely would know that. A good lazy man, poor man's flashcard. Given no other info, which of the following has a net capital requirement of $1 million? That'd be a block positioner. You should know it's not a market maker because that's 100 grand. You should know it's not an interesting broker dealer because that's 5 or 50. And you should know it's not a clearing broker dealer because that's 250. So you should have got there, even if you didn't know that, by process of elimination. Carrying firm must ensure it has physical possession and control of customer securities daily. A registered rep was arrested over the weekend for a misdemeanor offense. According to FIN rule, arrested? No, but arrested doesn't require the notification. It's he's convicted, right? So C. Who's required to participate in SIP? It was like a typo, SIPC, SIPC, and that would be clearing firms. 134, Rule 139 exempts the 1 day and 5 day restricted for follow-ons for all the following except. So the underwriter paid by the issuer D. Make sure you review 138, 139, equivalent securities, non-equivalent securities. There'll be something on it, going passive. All right, our last one here. XYZ has provided the shareholder list to a member firm. This is very testable. This is called misuse of information obtained in a fiduciary capacity. May the member use the information to put them into play? Absolutely not. You can only use the information for what it was discussed, given to you for. You know, we used to have a firm that's no longer with us, and the firm was hired by the issuer to decide whether they should, merge or make acquisitions, get bigger, because their industry was consolidating quite rapidly. And the investment bank that was hired said that you're right, you're too small, you need to put yourself up for sale. We can conduct an auction for you. They said, thanks, but no thanks. We're just going to remain independent, but thanks for your work. Here's your pay. Thank you very much. They then went to the competitor and said, have you thought about making a hostile bid for XYZ? And they said, well, we would, but we don't know anything about their customers, their margin. They said, we have all that right here. We just finished a consulting project for them and use the company's own information to put them into play. And that's very much what this rule is about. That's misuse of fiduciary information contained in a fiduciary capacity. They love on the test a shareholder list. They just love it. And you can only use the shareholder list for that which was given you. Another example would be, I write a research report and the CE calls me, he says, hey, Dean, that research report was spot on. Love you to send that to my customer. If I give you the shareholder list and names, addresses, and phone numbers, well, I won't give you their phone numbers, addresses. Can you send that to them? Absolutely, I can. Can I use that for prospecting? No, I can only use it for the purpose it was given me. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to go ahead and post this on the channel. And like I say, Brian's more than willing to talk to you with these questions. I am. This comes as part of his bundle. These are just, I like having performance opportunities to talk about. This was a quick and kind of dirty way for us to get some more questions up on the channel. So please don't give Brian a hard time about, me kind of pushing him to give me these questions to explicate with you. So hopefully you found it worthwhile. And like I say, whether you want to comment about them, do so in the comment section. And I told you, Brian is more than happy without you buying the videos to discuss any questions that he has here with you. And I will link to TestGeek Exam Prep LLC in both the video description and the pinned comment, as well as a Series 24 video that Brian has on his YouTube channel. That'll be in the video description and pinned there as well. Probably take me a while to timestamp this thing in the video description, but when I do, I'll make comments. Maybe I'll make some additional test comments on some of those questions, beef it up a little bit over the course of the next couple of weeks. All right, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next installment of the 24 playlist whenever that takes place.